Friday, folks. It's a glorious day in Aggie land as we celebrate the drubbing of the Golden Domers in South Bend. Here come Aggies. So I thought we'd celebrate with a little EP review from the veteran, the Lord Weird Slow Feg. This album is called Traveler EP, Supplement 1, The Ephemeral Glades. So, if you don't know the Lord Weird Slow Feg, they were formed in 1990. Debut came out in 96. They have like 10 albums out. There's a little story here which I'll touch on later on. Well, I'll mention later on. So we have Adrian Maestas on bass. I think he's been in the band since about 2022, 3 years. Austen Krater on drums. I think he's been there since about 2001. Mike Scalzi on vocal and guitar. He's been there from the beginning, pretty much his band. And Angelo Tringali also on guitar. I believe that he has been in the band since about 2005. So speaking of 2005, that's when they started just going by the name Slow Feg. And that's the album that I bought, was called Atavism. I had heard good things about Slow Feg. So I thought I'd check it out. I do not think I bought it in 2005, maybe 2010. I couldn't tell you. I don't think I bought it as a new release. I actually didn't care for it. Thought it's a little on the proggy side, a little on the experimental side. I was expecting more classic heavy metal, which is what I'd been led to believe that Slow Feg was. So I didn't really care for it. I did actually revisit it maybe a year or two ago. I did like it a lot better than originally, but I didn't like it enough that I ran out and bought some more. Slow Feg, and I know it looks like it's spelled Slough Feg, but I have it on good authority that the band pronounces it Slow Feg. So yeah, I never really looked into them any further. I've never known anybody who listened to them. But I saw this coming out, and you know, I always give stuff a spin, especially when it's in my YouTube feed and doesn't cost me anything. So I listened to it, and immediately I was like, okay, this doesn't sound like the Slow Feg that I have listened to before. Which makes me wonder, is this what... Well, they did start calling themselves the Lord Weird Slow Feg again in 2019. So did they start harkening back to their earlier sound? That's where I need somebody to tell me, because I don't know. I do know that in 2003, when they were still known as the Lord Weird Slow Feg, they had an album that was called Traveler. And as we know, this is called Traveler Supplement 1, The Ephemeral Glades. So is this harkening back to that sound? I'm imagining this has some tie into that sound. It seems like there's some kind of a story, cohesive story going on here. But again, when I listen to these, I don't really delve into the lyrics. I just listen to the music and get a feel for the album overall. So like I said, they did start calling themselves the Lord Weird Slow Feg again in 2019, and they released an album under that name called New Organon in 2019. So I might have to look into that one too, see what the sound like that is on what the sound is like on that one. If I can spit it out. So your first track on this one's called Knife World. I believe this is the one that I heard. I think they had the whole EP on there. It's probably on New Wave of Traditional Heavy Metal full albums, that website, or that channel. So immediately you get the classic metal riffing, and you get at least 3 quick smoking solos, guitar solos, before the lyrics even kick in, which is pretty close to the 2-minute mark. He's got a husky kind of voice, husky vocals, and over this furious gallop. There's really, you notice a really solid classic rock drumming in this too. None of that double bass, double time, solid old school classic rock drumming. It really fits the music good. And then you get this kind of space effects outro. There was a minimal space effect intro, so minimal at the beginning that you wonder if you even heard it, but then you definitely hear it on the end. Your next track's called The Black Circle. This is just a 1.5-minute long instrumental. It kind of has a little doomy guitar lead intro into it, and then you get some layered guitar or some sputtered drum beats, which leads right into Mission on Mithril. More classy, crunchy riffs going on here. Again, this is where you're starting to pick up on, is there some kind of story going on here? The lyrics, I mean, you can hear there's kind of something going on there. So I think there's a underlying story in here. I do know that the Lord Weird Slow Feg is based upon, even though these guys are from the U.S., I think they started off in Pennsylvania before moving to California. The Lord Weird Slow Feg, I think, is a character in a British comic book that's based on Celtic mythology, I think. But now this kind of has a space feel to it, so I don't know if that Celtic mythology ties into space. I don't know anything about it, honestly. But it does seem that like there's some kind of story going on here. You get a good heavy bluesy solo in this one before I lose my train of thought. Your next track is called Ephemeral Glades. You've been definitely picking up on some U.S. power metal riffs throughout this release. More blistering solos in this track. Magnetic Fluctuations is your next one. Get a good bass heavy bouncy riff in this one. Very new wave of British heavy metal chug going on in this one, and you get some hints of Thin Lizzy guitar and the layered guitar effects going on here. Good track, good solid track, one of my favorite ones on the album. Ice Shelf Stomp is your next one. More Lizzy type guitar in this one, kind of hearkening back to a Massacre. Good bass drum breakdown in this one, and you get some good old school Judas Priest, like Sad Wings of Destiny era guitar soloing going on in this one. And then your last track is called Vargar Reprise. Now, I mentioned that 2003 album, full-length album, that was called Traveler, and it has 2 songs on it called Vargar Moon and Vargar Theme. So here we get Vargar Reprise. So I'm thinking that yes, there is an underlying story that's binding all of these together. It's got a real, you get the return of the old school galloping riffs on this one. Just good classic metal feel to this track. Blends 80s US power metal and new wave of British heavy metal together. Another one of my favorite tracks on the album, if not my favorite track on the album. So good solid way to close the album out. So I give this one a solid 8.25 out of 10, which I think is a really good score for an EP. I mean, there's not a whole lot you can do with the EP. I mean, it's 7 tracks. One of them's a 1.5 minutes long. Instrumental. 3 of them are like around the 3-minute mark. So I think 8.25 is a really solid score on this one. Like I said, this is not, it doesn't sound anything like the Atavism album that I purchased by Slough, as they were known then. Yeah, this just blends. I mean, it's just a solid blend of 80s US power metal and new wave of British heavy metal mixed together with some hints of 70s metal thrown in there. So yeah, I need anybody to let me know, is this what early Lord Weird Slough sounds like? Is this what the 2019 album sounded like? And if you don't tell me, you'll just force me to go and find out on my own. But there we go. The Lord Weird Slough Traveler Supplement 1, the Ephemeral Glades. 8.25 out of 10. You guys have a good one, and remember to gig Maggies.